Guys, how are you guys doing today? This is gonna be a really quick one. Um, but I want you guys to take a look at this first before I say anything. So,
Okay. My name is Shamira Cook, and yesterday morning I dropped my son off at daycare. His name is Santi Reynolds. Dropped him off at 8:55, and I received a phone call at 11:47 from the director saying that my son choked on a meatball and that they're working on him and that everything's okay, but we need you here. And when I get to the daycare, it's all the first responders in the daycare. All the staff is running around crying and just scattering everywhere. And when me and his father, Asani Reynolds, turned the corner to go in his room, they had my son on the floor doing CPR, and he was already intubated before we got there.
K-12 makes going back to school easy. We deliver an education that takes your child beyond the classroom.
Already intubated before we got there. And nobody called me beforehand. I had to see my son laying there. He wasn't breathing. And everybody was just running around, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. And at some point, the EMS closed his room, and, and the director came out of nowhere, hugging me, saying he's fine, he's breathing, he's breathing. But when they're closing the door like that, I just know something's wrong. There's no way my son is breathing if they're closing the door and the blinds is down. My son was flatlining repeatedly in front of me. And this is all after being told everything was okay, that they was working on him before I got there. And I only lived 3 minutes from the daycare. All they had to do was just call me. They had to just call me. Even if they didn't know how to do the Heimlich, I work in a hospital, I could do it. I could get it out. And no one called to even give me that chance. No one gave me no chance to even get to my son. They let 15 minutes go by and my son is gone before anybody even get him to the hospital. I watched my son flatline for over an hour at the hospital. He tried. He kept trying. He just couldn't do it. No, nobody reached out to us. No one called us. Even the EMS looked to the staff when they got him on a gurney to rush him to the ambulance and asked if anybody was willing to ride with us to the hospital, and nobody would step forward except for one of the staff members that was able to do CPR on my son, and he wasn't even his teacher. And just to think that nobody was willing to even bother to even get in there with him. They was there the whole time. You can at least have the decency to ride with my son and at least give us some type of answers, but no one even bothered calling. I don't have nothing left for my son's shirt. I don't even want to take a shower because I got his scent on my skin. I'm just scared to take my clothes off because I guess this last smell I have on him. It's just, I wouldn't wish this on nobody. My son was only in daycare 3 hours and he was gone. Just the last memory I have of my son is him looking in the mirror and looking back at me when I was leaving out. If I would have known this would happen, I would have just kept my son home. I just came home from vacation with my son and my fiance and family.
okay, guys, y'all. I first want to say my condolences goes out to this mother and to the dad of this child. I'm sad that that happened, but for years now, the father has been calling the mother's home. Oh, Jesus. Hey, my God. My God. Hey, Jesus. Oh, Yeshua, 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 Yeshua. Mm, I'm sorry, y'all. Hey, Jesus. Hey. Oh, my God. It just really hurt. Mm, it really hurt when I hear things like that. Yeah. Because God gave us the children. He put them in our care to watch over them and to protect them and to raise them in the admonition of Him. Hey. Every time I hear something like that, it really hurts. It really hurts. Because I am a mother myself and a grandmother. Yeah. And I know how I feel to lose one. I know. I know. And it really hurts when I know what the Father has been saying for some years now, for over 20 years. The Father has been calling mothers back home to their children. And no one is listening. It seems as if no one is listening. Children are not safe in the hands of others right now. And it's been like this for a while. And it's getting worse by the day. Children are not safe in the hands of others. For one. And for two, children are not being taught of the Lord the way that they're supposed to be taught of the Lord. Children are not being taught to be responsible. Children are not being taught ethics or values or morals. Children are being killed at the hand of daycare. They're being killed at the hand of grandparents. They're being killed at the hand of aunties and uncles and cousins, even siblings. Mothers are needed at home with their children. That is the divine nature of things. The devil put that whole barefoot and pregnant thing out there, and mothers ran with that thing. Then the devil put out men don't want a woman that don't have something of their own, and men ran with that thing. Instead of following that which the Father has designed and lined up for man and woman, mothers and dads to do. When you have children, mothers are supposed to be home raising the children and tending to the house. And dad is supposed to be out there winning the bread. In other words, working. Children are being killed. Children are being raised in a way that they do not know how to present themselves or handle themselves. They're stealing, they're killing, they're raping children. Children. Because no one is taking time out to truly raise the children. No one cares about other people's children as if they were their own children, like they should. Even in the gathering house. Even in the gathering house, there was a time when you could trust your children with gathering house and your own family. But you can't even today. You can't trust your own children with the gathering house or your own family because it's not theirs. People don't treat other people's children as if they're theirs for the most part anymore. It's just not. It's just not there. It's not there. This baby, for example, she stayed 3 minutes away from the daycare. 3 minutes. She's a nurse. She worked at the hospital. She could have done everything she needed to do to save her baby. 3 minutes. The baby would have lasted 3 minutes long enough for her to get there if they'd have called her immediately. But they didn't. But if it had been their own, they would have made sure that someone was there that knew how to do the Heimlich maneuver on that baby. If it had been one of their own. If it had been one of their own, and the mother or the dad stayed 3 minutes, they'd have called them immediately when it first started happening. Letting them know your child is choking. We're trying to get it out. We need you here now, just in case. Mom, we know you're a nurse. We need you here because no one here know how to do the Heimlich. If it had been their own. If it had been one of their own. But it wasn't one of their own. Mothers, I cannot stress this. There was another baby killed not long ago at the hand of the dad's new wife. And this has been going on for a long time. But it's getting worse and worse now. Why? Because mothers refuse to obey that which the father has been saying for over 20 years, if not longer. But he's been saying it through me for over 20 years. Personally. Mothers, go home to your children. Go home to your children. The Father is calling the mothers. He gave us grace for a long time for the mamas to be able to go out and work. But that grace has been lifted because the things in the earth have changed. The things in the spirit realm have changed. There's more wickedness and evil in the earth and in the spirit realm. And mothers are needed at home. Dads are needed to take care and to provide for their children. You can no longer keep dropping children off and going on to the next, to the next, to the next, if you care about them. In this situation, I believe mom and dad was together. But nevertheless, as she said, if I knew this was going to happen, I would have just kept him home. That's the thing. You don't know when something like that is going to happen. That's why you need to keep them at home, period. Period. When you take it, when they get to age, the school age, you make sure they get to school and you make sure they get home. In the in-between time, if while they're in school, you can get a little job and work the hours, stay at school and back home by the time they get out, cool. But if you can't do that, stay home. Make sure the house is done. Make sure that the house is clean and everything around the house and the yard is done. Make sure they got food to eat when they get home. Make sure you spend ample enough time. Make sure you teach them. Make sure you're chastising them. Make sure you're raising them up in Christ. Make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to do as a mother because they are left in your care. They have been given to you for a purpose and for a reason. And things like this, it was never equated in the picture. It was never equated in the picture. Things like this that happen to children and babies, it was never equated in the picture. This is not what the Father had for these children. This is not the plan that he had for these children when he put them in the earth. I don't care what nobody say. The Father's not going to put a baby or a child in this earth for them to die off really early. That's not his purpose. It has never been his purpose. Never. When he put a child on this earth, they're here to be an addition to society for as long as he wants them to be. And when they die off that early like that, no. Now if they're born with a sickness or a disease or something like that, that's different. But something like this, where he choked off a meatball, and we know how to get a meatball out of him. No, that was not the Father's intention. No, no, mm-mm, no. Mothers, I cannot stress this hard enough or long enough. Go home to your children. Dads, go to work and provide for the mother and the children that you have, that you caused in this, that you put in this earth. When you have a child with a woman, that's your family. I don't care how. I don't care if you can't get along with it. That's your family. You created that baby. You helped create that baby. You provide for it now. That's your family. Whether you're in the house or not, it's still your family. I don't care if she got 4 kids by 4 different men. All 4 of them men, that's your family. That's your family. Because if you had a thought about it before you decided to have a child, you wouldn't have had a child with someone that was not your wife. But if you're doing that type of thing, which in this case that's not what was going on, but I'm just saying, if that's what's going on, all 4 of them women are your wife, and those are your children. Those are your children. You provide for all 4 of them so that your child is able to be raised in the way that it's supposed to be raised. Okay. I'm not gonna stay on here long. I'm pretty much done with saying what I needed to say. Again, mother, my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to you and all the mothers and dads that have been losing their children. I know how I feel. I know how you feel. I know how you feel. And I wouldn't wish that on my enemy. I would not wish that on none of my enemies. And I have many. And I have many that have done me some real terrible, done some real horrible things to me. But I still wouldn't wish it on even them. Mothers, go home to your children. Don't continue to allow this to happen. If they are home with you, this cannot happen. This cannot happen if they are home with you and you tended to them in the way that you're supposed to. But if you got them at home with you and you doing drugs and alcohol, you need to go get you some help so that you can do what you're supposed to do. God didn't give that child to an alcoholic or a drug abuser or a physical abuser or a mental abuser. He gave that child to someone that he know that you, before you turn to be out, to become this horrible person. If you're on drugs or alcohol, or you're a physical abuser or a mental abuser, go get you some help so that you can raise that child in the way it's supposed to be raised. God didn't give that child to that alcoholic or that drug abuser or that physical abuser or that mental abuser. He gave it to that beautiful woman that he created, or that handsome man that he created. That's who he gave these children to. He don't give it to these creatures that you turn out to be because you have decided to let life take over you. You've decided to become an alcoholic or a drug abuser or a mental or physical abuser. Go get some help and raise these children. Be the person that God created you to be. Because he did not create monsters. He created human. Well, he created monsters in a different realm. But on earth, he created man and woman, male and female. He did not create monsters. So if you a abuser of any sort, and you got children or you thinking about having children, go get some help. Go get some help. And I'm going to direct you to the best place you can go. Call on Jesus. Call on Lord Yeshua. Find the closest gathering house you could find. And run up in there. And get on that altar and ask him to deliver you. And be sincere about it. Don't kill these babies. Don't raise these children up in a way that they're going to end up either in a cage for the rest of their life or dead before their life even begin good. Think about these children. Think about it. I didn't appreciate my mom died when I was 10. I didn't appreciate that. That I had to go stay with my granny. When granny, she was raised during the slavery time. And it took a messenger from God to come to me and tell me one night when I was at work, and a messenger walked up to me. He said, "Well," and I had never said anything to him about it or anyone that I worked with. He just came out of nowhere and just said, "Have you ever stopped to think that your granny do the things to you that she do to you because that's all she know? You got to think about the time she was raised." I'm standing there crying in the rain, ain't saying nothing to nobody. He came, just told me a piece of my life. I was like, "What in the?" And I said, "No, I couldn't even." I mean, I was trying to figure out, well, how he know that, but at the same time, because I was crying and going through what I was going through, because I was feeling really emotional at that time about the situation, and he just came and called it out like that. I'm trying to think about that, but at the same time, it's like I couldn't really get offered to that like that because I'm emotional about the situation at that particular time. And I'm like, well, no, I never thought about that. Then I had to think about my granny did come up during the end of slavery. Slavery was over, but they were still hanging people and they were still beating people, and some slaves still wasn't set free. And she did pick cotton and stuff like that. And one of her sons left home. He was 17, never heard from him again. So they thinking, and he was in the South, so they believing that he was done away with at the hands of the racists back then. And my granny was really cruel. She could be loving and fun at times, but for the most part, she was really cruel. And I always said, I'll never raise my kids like that. Never. I never do this to my kids what she do to me. But the thing is, she was raised during slavery time. Me and my sister, she couldn't stand us. But my two cousins that was staying with her, she loved them. She gave them any and everything. Me and my sister, we used to get beat like last year's slaves. I ain't playing. We was much darker than the other two, so we used to get the beatings. Now she would get the other two every now and again, but me and my sister, we was the dark ones, and we was by the one of her children that she didn't really like. So we used to get beat like runaway slaves for real. And as I got older and I had my own children, I started out. I didn't beat them, but I would chastise them. And then I found myself calling them bitchs because my granny would always call us that. And then one day, and I would slap them in the face. And one day, the Lord set me down and ran through my ear. I never raised my kids like my granny doing us. Then he brought back to my memory how I would slap him and call him a bitch. I said, uh-oh. I'm laughing now, but it wasn't funny then. When he brought it to me, oh, I cried like a baby. I cried like a baby. And I said I'd never do it again. And I never did it again. I never slapped them in their face, and I never called them out their names. Because I was raising kings and queens. I was not raising bitches. And I quit slapping them in their face because they had legs and they had a behind to get hold to. Okay? So, I'm telling y'all this so that y'all can understand mothers and dads that have an abusive nature. It was because you were raised abused. Stop. Stop. You can. I did. My granny used to beat us with them old time pool cues that was made out of fiberglass. She had one in the ends of it. And she used to beat us. We tried to burn it, cut it, break it. We couldn't do nothing to that fiberglass stick. You hear me? She used to beat us with that thing. We'd go to school, knots on our head and arms and legs and stuff. Teachers would never say anything. She would beat us with them old ironing cords. You know, the ones that had the material on it. They had the 3 prongs inside the material, which was a whole lot worse. Even though it had the material on it, it was still worse than the extension cords that they got today. She would beat us with that. Then the clotheslines back then, you know, the clotheslines that was made out of like wire, she would beat us with that. She would Sometimes she wanted to hit us with a switch. She had a tree in her, a pussy willow tree in her yard. And her pussy willow limbs, they like rubber. And she would soak them boogers in some water and braid 3 of them up and put rubber bands at the end and soak them in some water. Tie the asses up with that, okay? So I'm telling you, if I could come out of that, and she would pull her little 38 pistol on us sometimes. If I could come up out of that and not with my children like that, I started getting them with this. This right here. CPS was called on me several times. And my kids would tell him. And it was one time my son told me, he said, Mama, he hit his cousin in the head with an E&J bottle. And they had to call me home from work. And I lit off into that tail. But that night I whooped him with a belt. And some dudes walking down the street talking, quit hitting that boy. And my son yelled out the house, shut up, this is my mama. I supposed to get a whooping. I was wrong. Okay? So if I could come up out of the beatings that I was getting from my grandmother, from age 10 until I think I was 16, the day before my 17th birthday, and I had a kid, and she was still beating me. Baby, if I could come up out of that and raise my children right and teach them of the Lord, you can too. You could come up out of that and teach your children of the Lord, and stop beating on your children like you don't lost your mind. Go get you some help. Go call on the Lord. You could do it. I did it. God is not a respecter of person. And if he could do it for me, he could do it for you. Okay? Now, y'all take care of these children. He ain't give it to that monster. He gave it to that person that he raised and he knew was a good, loving woman or a good, loving man. That's who he gave them children to. Stop killing these children. And mothers, there's your children being killed in these daycares, and their grandma and grandpa and sister and brother and cousin and uncle, even at their own hands of their own sibling. Mama, please be at home with your children. Be at home with your children. Not at home drinking, not at home getting high. But be at home. Be at home with your children and raise them properly and teach them of the Lord. Amen. Amen. Now, y'all have a blessed day. I got to go. I love y'all with the love of Christ. Peace. Till next time. Stay blessed.